Welcome and thank you for watching my channel. This video today is what a all-out nuclear strike by the United States on North Korea could look like. So if you were paying attention to some politics back in the late 2010s, there was that famous social media tweet from Donald Trump where he said, "I have a button too and mine works better." So nice little rhetoric and everything. And so let's take a look with an accurate U.S. arsenal, what's deployed. And so we have our Ohio-class submarines. Those are our submarines that are armed with the submarine-launched ballistic missiles. They had 24 tubes. We actually voluntarily filled in 4 of the tubes on each sub. And so we did that to comply with treaties. It's doing that thing again that drives me crazy, so it's going to be hard to take a look at this. But suffice to say, there's 20 of these sub-launch missiles on each sub. The United States does not currently have a nuclear-tipped sea-based cruise missile. So they are developing that. So there will be ones that will be sub-launched cruise missiles that have a nuclear warhead. We have them for air. We have the ACLM with a nuclear tip that could be deployed by the B-52s. But we do not currently have that capability. And it is believed Russia does. We have conventional cruise missiles. Some of our Ohio-class subs are armed with conventional cruise missiles to strike that way, which is more viable because crossing the nuclear threshold is a very, very serious thing that would only be undertaken under the most extreme circumstances. But it's nice to have that capability. And so we are in development of that. We have strategic bomber assets, including the B-52 and B-2 stealth bombers that are deployed across a few bases. Primary ones would be Guam. There's also Diego Garcia. And in this scenario, knowing that they're going to start doing nuclear strikes, they have dispersed some to some other airfields. In this scenario, which would be, this is more, like I said, for a demonstrative purpose versus what I consider more realistic and plausible scenario of escalation. But in this one, we'd be following on for some type of North Korean provocation and give the go-ahead to basically try to drive that north of the 47 parallel, into the sea. Let's go. It's going to be a mix of civilian and military targets. There's going to be so many warheads. It's not going to be a huge factor. I've deployed all the subs close by to kind of give just a visual representation. Of course, those subs would not need to be deployed so closely. In fact, they could be deployed, Arctic or off the coast of the United States. This does help with response times and shortening response times if you can infiltrate closer. Now, this isn't every Ohio-class sub we have because only a certain number are going to be deployed at any one time. Other ones will be going through maintenance and other things. So we see a lot of stuff landing already. I just want to point to just the sheer number of warheads. So when it comes to the current deployed nuclear stockpiles, the United States and Russia both have about 1,700 deployed warheads. That's not missiles, because a missile can have multiple warheads. So, for instance, our ICBMs, which are based in silos in the central United States, those are all one missile, one warhead. Now, these sub-based ballistic missiles can have up to 8 warheads. Now, what we're seeing there was the sub-based ones. Now, right back there is where you're seeing the ICBMs. So those are still making their way there. We'd already see a significant amount of damage, though, just with the sub-based missiles. The majority of our nuclear arsenal is sea-based. It's considered more survivable because it's under the sea, basically, until it's time to launch. These are some conventional weapons on these surface ships. Our naval surface ships do not currently have a nuclear capability, at least not one that's known or advertised, and those things are watched pretty closely. But they do have a fantastic conventional capability. If you didn't see my last video, I highly suggest you check it out. It's about a nuclear warhead C. And I use Command Modern Operations to test some stuff out. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, I am moving from Kentucky to Georgia, and I am doing a vlog series on that move. So, highly recommend you check it out just to check out the experience. Maybe if you got to move in the future or sometime and you haven't done it before, I'm offering some tips and tricks on the way. I have only moved twice. It's only the second time I've moved as far as buying a house. I've moved a few times, renting and other stuff, but this will be the second bought house. And it's the first time going through the process of selling a house and buying a house. So hopefully some of my experiences can help out for people. So look at this. Another massive amount of strikes. You have over almost 400 ICBMs. That's 400 warheads. And this isn't even getting into some of the air-launched ones. So we still have some of our air assets. I'm going to speed things up. And we see some of that stuff landing now too. Some of the B-52s will be coming from the United States. So it'll take a little bit longer for them to travel. The ones that are based here in the Pacific, not as long. And let's go ahead and kick things into high gear. Now what you saw there was the B-52s are launching air-launched standoff cruise missiles that can be fired from further away. These B-2 stealth bombers are doing the old-school gravity bombs, so they have to fly over the target. So that's why you're seeing the difference there. Now in real life, we'd almost certainly under no circumstance be launching every one of our nuclear deployed weapons at North Korea. Let's start with that part. Second part is we'd be coordinating our strikes far better. If you see there, you have air-launched cruise missiles detonating at the same time. You have B-52s overhead dropping gravity bombs. A little bit of possible friendly fire there. Obviously, it'd be a better coordination. That's where Command Modern Operations does a much better job of some of this stuff. It's just not very visually appealing, so I just put that video out, and not too many people have watched it. But I'm still going to do more of them now that I've started breaking it out again. All right. 21.6 million North Korean casualties, 9.3 million Chinese, and a handful Russian and South Korean. So the question might be why. Question might be why such a large number of Chinese casualties compared to a relatively small amount of South Korean casualties. because of the current wind pattern, all the fallout went north. So if the wind was coming from a different direction, you would have seen a massive shift in casualties. For example, if the wind was traveling, say, directly east, a lot of the fallout would be over the ocean and a little bit into Japan. If it's traveling south, be going into South Korea and, again, Japan. But with this fallout pattern, it's going across China and hitting some of the more populated areas. Obviously not the most highly populated areas. It's not hitting Shanghai or Beijing. But certainly, there's no shortage of people living there. So that's why their casualties are almost as high as North Korea. It's doing that thing again, so it's not going to let me properly look at this because it's... I don't know why it's doing that. It stopped doing it for a while, and now it's started again. So it can be exported. Suffice to say, though, humongous amount of casualties. North Korea would be completely unlivable, complete cease functioning as a nation. China would be extremely devastated. I wouldn't see any circumstance that they would not be retaliating, of course. Of course, Russia would certainly, not as much, certainly because of less population there, but they would still have fallout going across their country, and I'm sure they would have a certain high level of anger about that as well. But if just a visual representation of exactly how devastating a U.S. nuclear strike could be on a country, it's a good example right there. So while it was, and I say this, forget the politics aside, because I am not a fan of, I'm not an anti-air fan, but I would say that saying stuff like, I have a much bigger button, is pretty childish and stuff. And we shouldn't be talking with cavalier attitudes towards nuclear weapons. But don't get me wrong, it's not like this world isn't in a disaster as far as conflicts in the last few years. So you can judge that how you want. But certainly, we're not in a better geopolitical situation after 4 years of the current administration. So, or 3 years. Or 4. Whatever. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Check out my last video and check out the moving stuff. Appreciate it.